Hey guys, welcome back at it. Rencity returning, episode 63, sports and shorts of sorts. Had some time off in between episodes. Me and the wife went on vacation, much needed. We loved it. Now snap back to reality, getting the flow of work, getting this recorded, get this dope podcast going again. Much like the last few episodes, we'll start the jersey mentions for 63 with NFL players, starting with a guy who did lots lots in the NFL on the field and plenty for the NFLPA off the field. I'm talking about Uptown Gene Upshaw, the Texas-born Upshaw, went on to play college football at Texas A&I, now known as Texas A&M. He played most of the positions on the offensive line in college. I would settle at left guard, where he'd get drafted 17th overall by the Oakland Raiders of the AFL. He played all 6 seasons of professional football with the Raiders. In his rookie seasons, the Raiders would win the AFL championship and advance to the second ever Super Bowl, where the Raiders were trounced by my Green Bay Packers as the Pack won back-to-back Super Bowls. Before the AFL merged with the NFL officially in 1970, Upshaw would earn a second-team All-AFL his rookie season, followed by 2 first-team AFL nods. He was also named the AFL All-Star team, but after the merger, Gene Upshaw continued to play fantastic football in the NFL, and he'd earned 3 first-team All-Pros, 5 second-team All-Pros. He'd also make 6 straight Pro Bowl appearances. Upshaw was part of one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they bullied people. Like the Raiders run the Super Bowl 11, they would end up obliterating the Minnesota Vikings, rushing for an insane 266 yards. In that game, Upshaw really overwhelmed defensive tackle and future Hall of Famer Alan Page. 4 years later, Upshaw and the Raiders would get back to the Super Bowl, where they beat up on the Eagles to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. In the process, Gene Upshaw became the first player in 3 Super Bowls across 3 decades, playing in 67, 76, and 1980. Since then, Jerry Rice, Bill Romanowski, and of course Tom Brady have achieved that feat. Gene Upshaw also set an NFL record to start his career. His 231 consecutive games to start a career, including the playoffs, is a record that still stands today. Upshaw was named to the NFL 1970s All-Decade Team. He was named to the NFL 75th and 100th Anniversary All-Time Teams. After retirement, he'd get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and then he'd get involved with the NFLPA, like I mentioned earlier. He'd work his way becoming the executive director of the NFLPA. He led with mixed emotions from people involved in the NFL. Active players, big fans of Upshaw for what he was doing for them. However, a lot of retired players, not as big a fan. And he even said they couldn't vote him out because only active players get to vote on the executive director. In August of 2008, Upshaw was telling his wife how his breathing was kind of labored. He'd go to the doctor and was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. After diagnosis, he did not live much longer and succumbed to the disease 5 days after his 63rd birthday. The league wore a patch with GU and the number 63 on it, and regardless of how you felt about his ambitions as a director for the union, you have to acknowledge him on being one of the best interior linemen that graced the fields of the NFL. The next NFL 63 mention, we're going to the defensive side of the ball. Former middle linebacker Willie Lanier. Virginia-born Lanier went on to play college football at Morgan State, where he was twice selected small college football All-America team. This led to the Chiefs selecting him in the second round of the 67 NFL draft. Before the Chiefs and the AFL officially merged with the NFL, Lanier picked up 2 All-AFL nods and 2 AFL All-Star appearances. Then in the last year before the merger, the Chiefs beat the Raiders to win the AFL championship and get a spot in Super Bowl IV. The Chiefs' defense, including Lanier, dominated the Vikings on their way to winning the franchise's first Super Bowl. Lanier would spend his 11-season career with the Chiefs, putting up really good numbers: 8 All-Pro selections, 6 Pro Bowl nods, named to the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary team. Solid dude that won Man of the Year in 1972. The award has since been named the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. In 78, he was traded to the Colts, but retired before playing. So he was officially a Chief his whole career. The Chiefs honored him with retiring at 63. He was also inducted into the Chiefs Hall of Fame. He was also inducted to the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's a very underrated linebacker that probably isn't talked about enough. The next 63 from the NFL takes us back to the offensive line, and we jump in the time machine to honor Dick Stanfill. This is the Rencity time machine. We going way back, the 1940s. After enrolling in San Francisco Junior College and playing football for a year and a half, Stanfield would serve as a signal corpsman in the U.S. Army. After his military service, he'd attend the University of San Francisco, where he played both sides of the ball, but predominantly played guard on the offensive line, which led to him getting drafted early in the second round of the 1951 NFL draft by the Detroit Lions, where Stanfield was dealt with a knee injury before even suiting up with the team. But once he suited up, he was a game changer. Great blocking helped guide the Detroit Lions to back-to-back NFL championships in his first two seasons in the NFL in 52 and 53. Stanfield was one of the best guards in the NFL and was a huge part of the Lions' success. In 55, Stanfield dealt with injuries and the Lions struggled, and the following season he was surprisingly traded to the then Washington Redskins. Despite the team's lack of winning, Stanfield still earned accolades for being one of the best in his position, retiring after just 7 seasons of playing. He was named to 5 first-team All-Pros, 5 Pro Bowls, named to the Pride of the Lions, and was named to the Lions All-Time Team. Stanfield was also named the NFL 1950s All-Decade Team, and after his playing days were done, he coached for decades, starting as assistant line coach at Notre Dame under his former coach in college and with Washington, Joe Coolidge. He would then reach coach at California under legendary Bills coach Marv Levy. Stanfield would again work for his former coach with the Eagles as an offensive line coach before taking the same job with the 49ers. He'd go on to the Saints, and after Dick Nolan was fired, he'd finish the season as interim head coach, finishing officially with a 1-3 head coaching record. But Stanfield would then join the Chicago Bears staff, and when Mike Ditka took over coaching duties in 82, those minds came together and worked some magic. Stanfield was on the coaching staff of the Super Bowl 20 winning Bears team, some say one of the best teams ever, and in 97, when Ditka would take on the New Orleans Saints head coaching job, he gave him Stanfield a call and said, "Hey, you want to come coach?" Where he joined up and helped out there. Great career, great coaching career. A guy that's been involved with football his whole life, really. Got to mention him. And so the next 63 to be mentioned, a center and long snapper, talking about Dermontti Dawson. He played college football at Kentucky, which led to the Steelers drafting him in the second round of the 1988 draft, where Dawson spent his entire career with the Steelers, earning 6 first-team All-Pros, 7 Pro Bowl appearances. He was named to the NFL 1990s All-Decade Team, and the Steelers honored Dawson by naming him to the Steelers All-Time Team and put him in their Hall of Honor and their Pro Football Hall of Fame. Steelers know how to do it. And Dawson was also inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Fantastic career. We'll stick with some offensive linemen here. The next 63 on the list, Mike Munchak, standout guard at Penn State, which led to the Houston Oilers drafting him 8th overall in the 1982 draft. Munchak quickly earned the starting position and never looked back, spending his entire playing career with the Oilers. Munchak was named to 4 first-team All-Pros, 6 second-team All-Pros, 9 Pro Bowls, and was named to the NFL 1980s All-Decade Team. The now Tennessee Titans have Mike Munchak in their Ring of Honor, and his number 63 is retired by the franchise. He was named to the Pro Football Hall of Fame after he retired. And after his playing days were done, Munchak went into coaching, where he's mostly been an offensive line coach, although he did coach the Titans for a few seasons, picking up a 22 and 26 head coaching record. We'll flip-flop back to the defense. The next 63, Leroy Selmon, going to another player who spent his entire career with one franchise. Selmon played college football with the Oklahoma Sooners, and his dominant play there, including first-team All-American and 2 national championships, led to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Leroy Selmon first overall in the 76 NFL Draft. Take a few seasons for Selmon to find his groove, but once he did, damn. He won NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1979. Selmon also picked up 3 first-team All-Pro nods, 2 second-team All-Pro nods, 6 Pro Bowls. Selmon was named to the NFL 1980s All-Decade Team, as well as the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. The Bucs have honored Leroy Selmon by making him the first Buccaneer to be honored in their Ring of Honor, and his number 63 is retired by the franchise. Leroy Selmon was also inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. However, in 2011, Leroy Selmon would suffer a stroke. It did a number on him. He would pass away at the age of 56 from complications from that stroke. An underrated lineman that really needs to be talked about more. The next 63 is, you guessed it, another offensive lineman, the only non-Hall of Famer on the group that I've mentioned so far, but he could be one day. I'm talking about former center Jeff Saturday. He played college football at North Carolina, where he'd go undrafted in the 1998 NFL Draft, despite twice being named first-team All-ACC. Saturday signed with the Ravens, but never made the squad and was waived. He actually returned to North Carolina and took a job as a manager in an electrical supply store. The following year, he'd approached the Colts franchise, and Bill Polian took a chance on him. Saturday was signed, and he excelled once he got his chance. Jeff Saturday would go on to make 6 Pro Bowl appearances, 2 first-team All-Pros, 2 second-team All-Pros. He was almost at one with quarterback Peyton Manning. You got to be close with your quarterback if you're a center, and they had one head at time, it seems. They were both members of the Super Bowl 41 winning Colts team that beat the Bears. Saturday would play his final season in the NFL with my Green Bay Packers before calling it a career. Saturday's been great on TV and was even called out of the booth to help his old team out, coaching the Colts to a 1-7 record to finish their season. Wrapping up the NFL, I'll quickly mention 3 guys killing it in the NFL right now, wearing 63. 2 guards and a center. We'll start with guard Chris Lindstrom of the Atlanta Falcons. The 27-year-old will have some pressure on him to keep his new quarterback safe, whether it's first-round pick Michael Penix Jr. or if it's Kirk Cousins. I imagine Cousins might be healthy by then. We'll see what happens. Atlanta's crazy. 27-year-old, like I said, he's got pressure on him. We'll go to the center now. Corey Lindsey, a longtime Packer who joined the Chargers back in 2021. He's been named a first-team, second-team All-Pro. He's got 1 Pro Bowl appearance. And my final mention, 28-year-old Austin Corbett, a guard for the Carolina Panthers. He's dealt with some injuries the past few seasons and is looking for a bounce-back season, as many Panthers are. We'll go from the gridiron to the hockey rink, starting with one of the biggest instigators and pains in the ass, unless he's on your team. Boston Bruins captain Brad Marchand. Bruins selected Marchand in the 3rd round of the 2006 entry draft, and he spent his entire career so far with Boston. Over that time, he's evolved as a player. Like I said, he was an instigator, known for pissing everyone off, including licking someone's face. It happened. Look it up. The video is weird. Marchand has shifted his game into more of a scoring one. It's really helped his career. He's a 6-time All-Star, was an important part of that 2011 Stanley Cup winning Bruins team, which triggered the Vancouver riots. And Marchand is loved by the Bruins fan. He holds the record for most playoff goals, most overtime goals, and most shorthanded goals in Bruins history. And he's also represented Canada internationally, winning 2 gold medals with the World Juniors and a gold medal at the World Championship. The next 63 on our list is from the NHL. Jesper Bratt, the up-and-coming Swedish winger, plays for the Devils, same team that selected him in the 6th round of the 2016 NHL draft. The last 3 seasons have been fairly productive, and Bratt made his first All-Star game this past season. Watch for him on the rise. Wrapping up the hockey segment of 63 wearers, I'll mention current NHL player Evgeny Dadonov. The Russian winger has 7 points this current postseason for the Dallas Stars and has been an important piece of the team getting as far as they have. He was drafted 71st overall in the 2007 NHL entry draft by the Panthers. After time spent with the franchise and their AHL affiliate, Dadonov went back to Russia to play in the KHL. He returned to the NHL and played a few more seasons with the Panthers, and the last few seasons has just kind of been a rotating door of jerseys. He suited up for the Senators, then the next season the Golden Knights, then the Montreal Canadiens. Now he's in Dallas, where the 35-year-old has his eye on the cup. But they have to get through Edmonton first. We'll get more to that later. Going to the MLB, there were some players, but nothing really jumped out. This one, I don't even know how well it jumps out, but a great story. The 63 right-handed pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds, not Wrens, I'm the Wrens, but the Cincinnati Reds, Fernando Cruz. A lot of younger guys are wearing this number, but the Puerto Rican Fernando Cruz, he's bounced around forever in the minor leagues and various other leagues before finally making his MLB debut in 2022 at the age of 32. A story to remind people never to give up on your dreams, as the 34-year-old is still pitching in the big leagues 2 years after his debut. And like a lot of these numbers lately in the NBA, the number 63 is not popular. It was worn by Cody Clark for 3 games in 2015, 2016. Clark suited up for the Celtics in those 3 games, rocking that 63. And after playing at Arkansas a few seasons, Clark went undrafted in the 2014 draft. And like I said, he only had those 3 games in the NBA on his resume, but he's played all over the world. And currently he plays in Japan in the B League, which is what they call their basketball league over there. So yeah, interesting numbers with 63, some wild cards. But hey, NHL playoffs. Holy shinkies. Like I said, it's been a bit of a gap. Mind the gap since last episode. So we got some NHL to catch up on here. Like I said, there were still conference semifinals last episode. The Bruins beat the Panthers to get back in the series and make it 3-2. Just for the Panthers to go into Boston and win 2-1, winning the series 4-2 and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. The New York Rangers went into Carolina after losing 2 in a row with the series at 3-2, but the Rangers took care of the Hurricanes, winning the game 5-3, winning the series 4-2, setting up a date with the Florida Panthers with the crown of the East of the line on the line. Going out west, the Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks, two Canadian teams going at it. This was a battle. The Oilers beat the Canucks in Edmonton in Game 4 to tie the series at 2. Then back in Vancouver, the Canucks would win 3-2 to take a 3-2 series lead. The series went back to Edmonton, where the Oilers spanked the Canucks 5-1 to force a series-deciding Game 7. After a scoreless first period, the Oilers would score 3 goals in the second period to take a 3-0 lead into the final frame, where the Canucks did not quit. Connor Garland scored with 8:33 left to make it 3-1. 4 minutes later, Filip Hronek scored to make it 3-2, leading to a crazy ending. The Oilers held on to win 3-2, won the series 4-3, advancing to the conference finals. But big shout out to Vancouver goalie Artur Silva. Man, he stepped in when Thatcher Demko went down, and people are like, what are they going to do? Silva stepped in there. He did what he had to do. He played well. You can't put these losses on him. Who would the Oilers be facing for the West Crown? Well, the Avalanche were trying to get back in their series with the Stars. The Avs won Game 5 in Dallas, cut the series deficit to 3-2, sending the series back to Colorado for Game 6, which was a duty. A doozy, not a duty. Mikko Rantanen gave the Avs a 1-0 lead in the second period, only for Jamie Benn to tie things up early in the third. This game would need overtime, where no goal was to be had, sending it to double overtime, where the game-winning goal was a greasy one, as playoff overtime goals tend to be. Scramble in front of the net had the puck ending up on Matt Duchene's stick, and the former third overall pick by the Avalanche stuck it to his former club, firing the puck into the back of the net. So the Stars win 2-1, won the series 4-2, sending the Stars on a date with the Oilers, with the winner going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So here we go. All playoff roads lead to the conference finals, and we'll start with that Rangers hosting the Panthers. Both teams had some waiting to do before this matchup, and it seemed like the Panthers were a little more readier of the team. After a first period goal by Matthew Tkachuk, it really set the tone for the game. The game stayed tight throughout, but late there was some mishandling by Igor Shesterkin, which led to Carter Verhaeghe throwing the puck at the net, where it would ricochet off Lafreniere's stick, making it 2-0. Sam Bennett added an empty netter, and the Panthers picked up a 3-0 win in the Big Apple. Another outstanding shutout by officer Sergei Bobrovsky. Game 2, New York, it was a little closer. Vincent Trocheck opened the scoring for the Rangers, giving them their first goal of the series. Late in the first, while on the power play, Verhaeghe would snap one home to tie the game going into the intermission. Second and third period would bring us no goals, so we're going to overtime, where in the extra frame, Rangers Barclay Goodrow snapped the puck, top chatter, scoring the game-winning goal, tying this series up at 1, going back to Florida. Game 3 was another example of how close these two teams are. Both teams scored 2 goals in the first period. Florida's Sam Reinhart opened the scoring on a power play. New York's Lafreniere showed off his nice hands when he tied the game up at 1. Game 2 hero Barclay Goodrow, he'd be the last of many people to get a stick on the puck. Ricochet City as it found the back of the net. Then again on the power play, Sam Reinhart would score again. This time he'd bank it in off the goalie at a tight angle, tying the game at 2 going into intermission. Again, Alexis Lafreniere would show off the skills. He'd make a hell of an individual effort, splitting the Panthers and finding the back of the net, making it 3-2. Goodrow would fire home his second in the game on the penalty kill, opening New York's lead up to 4-2 going into the third. But early in the third, Alexander Barkov found the back of the net, make it 4-3. Moments later, Gustav Forsling found his shot finding the back of the net, and it was tied at 4. And again, going to overtime, and in overtime, from the offensive faceoff, a point shot would get redirected by Ryan Lindgren of the Rangers. Would find the back of the net. Rangers would win 5-4, and they take a 2-1 lead in the series. What a great series, Great goals, some great goaltending. What a Russian battle between Bobrovsky and Shesterkin. Game 4 is actually going down tonight. This podcast is probably getting uploaded later, so it could be going on as this is going on. So looking at my seeing glass here, I'm hoping the Rangers win because I did pick them to go to the finals, but we'll see what happens. It can't count Florida. This one's probably going to overtime again. This brings us to our Western Conference bout between the Edmonton Oilers and Dallas Stars. Game 1 was played in Texas with the Stars hosting, and after a scoreless first period, Leon Draisaitl would fire it home and give the Oilers the lead. Minutes later, Zach Hyman would score. Suddenly it's 2-0. Dallas would take an advantage of a ghastly giveaway by Edmonton, and Tyler Seguin would make it 2-1. The third, Dallas would tie it up when the puck would ricochet to a wide-open Seguin, who would score to, like I said, tie the game up at 2 and force overtime. There'd be good chances, but no goals in an overtime where we'd go to double overtime. And just over 30 seconds in the double OT, Connor McDavid would redirect a pass into the back of the net, sealing the game with a game winner, and Edmonton won 3-2 and took a 1-0 lead in the series. Game 2 would be the home team that opened the scoring. Jamie Benn would find the back of the net to make it 1-0. Moments later, Edmonton would equalize when Connor Brown pounced on a rebound to score. No goals in the second, but Dallas would regain the lead in the third when a point shot was redirected by Mason Marchment to give the Stars a 2-1 lead. They'd add an empty netter to take the 3-1 win, tying the series at 1 going back to Edmonton. And Game 3 was buzzing in Edmonton, especially with the start the Oilers had. Zach Hyman redirected a McDavid shot or pass, made it 1-0, and soon after McDavid would find the back of the net, and the Oilers were up early, 2-0. Don't count the Stars, though. Jason Robinson would fire one home in the second period to make it 2-1. Then not even 3 minutes later, Robinson would score again, tying the game up at 2. And then another few minutes would pass, or not even a minute would pass, and Wyatt Johnston would score for the Stars. So in a span of a few minutes, the Stars went from down 2-0 to being up 3-2. What a turnaround. The Oilers got one back late in the period. The puck was whipped at the net, and Adam Henrique would redirect it in, tying the game at 3 going into the third. Jason Robertson would be in tight with the angle, tight when the goalie on a tough angle. He'd make a little move to get Skinner to just shift a bit, and Robertson would bank it off Skinner, putting the Stars up 4-3, giving Jason Robertson his first career playoff hat trick. And then Miro Heiskanen would add an empty netter to seal the 5-3 win. Dramatic comeback victory on the road for the Stars, giving them a 2-1 lead in the series. Game 4 going down Edmonton tomorrow, Wednesday, May 29th. I'm thinking the Oilers tie it up there, but we'll see. After this NHL recap, let's look at the playoff leaders. It's looking a little oily atop the leaderboards. Edmonton's Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid leading the league with 25 points each. Edmonton defenseman Evan Bouchard is in third with 22 points. New York's Vincent Trocheck and Florida's Matthew Tkachuk tied at 18. Edmonton's Zach Hyman leads the playoffs in goals with 13. His teammate Draisaitl is in second with 9. Tied with Colorado's Valerie Nichushkin, who had 9 goals before receiving that 6-month suspension. Shows what kind of damage Nichushkin was doing on the ice before getting placed in Stage 3 of the NHLPA Player Assistance Program. And before we wrap up the NHL segment, just a few little more tidbits coming through. Some new coaching hirings. Toronto Maple Leafs signing Craig Berube to be their new head coach on a 4-year contract. Should be interesting to see how he handles the Toronto media. Former Maple Leafs head coach, before getting fired obviously, Sheldon Keefe, signed a contract to be the new head coach of the New Jersey Devils. The LA Kings took the interim tag off Jim Hiller as they make him the new permanent coach going forward. Winnipeg has hired their new man, Scott Arniel. He's the new coach in Winnipeg. Seattle has also found their new coach. The Kraken have fired former Stanley Cup winning coach with the Penguins, Dan Bylsma. And some more news involving a coach, not a firing or a hiring, but some hardware. Vancouver's Rick Tocchet picked up the Jack Adams Award for Best Coach of the Season. Did a phenomenal job with the Canucks. Carolina Hurricanes president and GM Don Waddle resigned from the position. It seemed like a strange move after being with the club for 10 seasons, and they've been pretty successful, but he was scooped up quickly. Waddle was picked up by the Columbus Blue Jackets, where he will be their new president and GM. And also a trade dimension, the Nashville Predators are sending Ryan McDonough back to Tampa Bay for some draft picks. So lots of going on in hockey. If you're not watching the Rangers game, maybe check it in, but make sure you come back and listen. We got to talk about the professional women's hockey league. There's some more hockey going on. The finals are upon us, and what a series. Boston has been taking on Minnesota in this best-of-5 final series, and Boston won a high-scoring affair in Game 1, but Minnesota shut out Boston to take Game 2. Minnesota then took a 2-1 series lead with a win at home. Then with their backs against the wall, Boston won 1-0 in double overtime, set up a title-clinching Game 5 back in Boston. Boston hosts Minnesota Wednesday, May 29th, with the winner securing the inaugural Walter Cup. Also, the 3 finalists have been named for the PWHL MVP. The finalists for the Billie Jean King Award are New York's Alex Carpenter, Montreal's Marie-Philippe Poulin, and Toronto's Natalie Spooner. And you might notice none of those players are in the finals, so just saying. One last hockey bit. The World Championships came to a conclusion. Some good hockey going on in Czechia. Sweden came from behind to beat Canada and secure the bronze medal. The gold medal match featured Switzerland and host nation Czechia, and it was a tight game, but Boston Bruin David Pastrnak scored the game winner, leading to a 2-0 win. Massive win for Czechia on their home ice. It looked like some good partying going on there. We're going from the hockey rink, we're going to the footy pitch, where we're wrapping up a lot of this stuff, wiping our hands clean of these domestic leagues that have come to a complete conclusion. We're going to start in the Premier League here. And it wasn't like other leagues, where the title was decided weeks ago. This title would be decided on the last games. And there were some midweek games to make up for some postponed games. Man City easily took care of Tottenham 2-0. Chelsea went on the road beating Brighton 2-1. And Man United beat Newcastle 3-2 at Old Trafford. And this all led into, like I said, the crazy, wild last game of the season. And in the Premier League, all match day 38 fixtures start at the exact same time on the exact same day to add drama, to avoid match fixing. We know how bets are getting into everybody nowadays, so I kind of love it. It's kind of hard to watch, I guess, unless you have multiple screens, but it's pretty cool, Arsenal needed to beat Everton at home to have any chance of winning the title, and Everton jumped out to an early lead through Idrissa Gueye in the 40th minute, but Tomiyasu would equalize for Arsenal just 3 minutes later. And then Kai Havertz would score in the 89th minute to give Arsenal the 2-1 win and keep their title hopes alive. But they need help, and they need help from a rival, my boys at West Ham, as they took on Manchester City. It was the last match with David Moyes and his staff in charge of West Ham before Julian Lopetegui and his new staff take over. I got to learn the Spanish manager's name better if he's going to be managing West Ham. But anyway, Arsenal was hoping their London rivals would help them out. But it wasn't happening. Man City jumped on the hammers early. Phil Foden scored an absolute beauty in the second minute of the match, putting it top corner. Then he scored again in the 18th minute, giving him a brace and Man City a 2-0 lead after just 18 minutes. Mohamed Kudus got one back for West Ham just before halftime. I love that signing. But Rodri put the game on ice when he scored in the 59th minute, and Man City won the match 3-1. Their fourth Premier League title in a row, a feat that has never been done before. It was also Manchester City's sixth title in 7 years. What Pep Guardiola has done with this team is pretty damn good. Next year is probably his last with Man City, though, as it's his last year in his contract. And though they've been one of the highest spenders in the league and they have 115 charges of financial irregularity hanging over their head, it'll be interesting to see where the club goes after next season. But until then, I congratulate the Premier League champions, Manchester City. There's some other big matches going on that didn't have title ramifications. Legendary Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp was managing his last game with Liverpool. They hosted Wolves, and it was an emotional scene. Before the match, Liverpool fans sang their club anthem, "You'll Never Walk Alone." Everyone looked to be affected by the emotion. Wolves would go a man down when Nelson Semedo was sent off for a terrible tackle, and that opened things up for Liverpool. McAllister, who was victim of that tackle, would head home a goal to open the scoring, and Kwanzaa would double the lead just 6 minutes later. Massive 2-0 result for Liverpool as they sent their legendary manager off on a good note. It's going to be rough not to have Jurgen Klopp in the EPL. His energy, his high spirits, it's going to be missed. The club has employed him since 2015, and it'll be interesting to see how newly appointed manager Arne Slot will fill in these massive shoes left behind by Klopp. Other fixtures on the last day of the season featured some good ones. Newcastle went on the road to take on Brentford, and 3 goals in the first 38 minutes really set the tone. Newcastle would hold on to win 4-2. Brighton hosted Manchester United as both teams had higher expectations for the season, and both have kind of fallen middle of the table. This lackluster game featured 2 second-half goals by the visitors, one by Diego Dallo and another by Rasmus Højlund, and United held on to the 2-0 road win. And it was also announced that Brighton manager Roberto De Zerbi will be leaving the club as well. Plenty of rumors on where the Italian will coach next, and not too sure on who will be taking the reins of Brighton. Chelsea hosted Bournemouth and opened the scoring in the 17th minute with a lovely goal by Moises Caicedo. Raheem Sterling doubled the lead in the 48th minute, but a Chelsea own goal just a minute later made it 2-1. Chelsea would hold on for the hard-earned 2-1 win, and it was a rough end of the season for Bournemouth as they lost 3 in a row to end their season. And on the contrast, Chelsea finished the season on a 5-game winning streak, even qualifying for European competition. But it did not help with keeping the manager, though, as Mario Pochettino has left the club on a mutual consent. So I'm not sure how mutual that was, but it was surprising. Like, Chelsea looked like they were finding their way at the end of the year. Crystal Palace hosted Champions League bound Aston Villa. The visitors looked happy with their place in the top 4, and they did not really show up for this finale. Crystal Palace continued their stellar play of late, dominating the match. Mateta finishing with a hat-trick, Eze finishing with a brace, and Crystal Palace cruised to an easy 5-0 win. Amazing finish to the season for Palace as they went unbeaten in their last 7, winning 6 of those last 7. Tottenham went on the road and beat up on bottom of the table Sheffield United. 2 goals by Kulusevski and another by Pedro Porro led to Tottenham picking up the 3-0 road win. That win qualified Tottenham for European play next season, while the loss was another tough game for the relegated Sheffield United club. Disappointing season where they could only manage 3 wins on the campaign. Speaking of clubs getting relegated, Burnley hosted Nottingham Forest in their season finale. We already knew Burnley was relegated, but Nottingham Forest had a very slim chance of dropping if they were to lose this game. The visitors quickly dismissed any chance of that happening when Chris Wood scored 2 goals in the first 14 minutes of the match. Josh Cullen got one back for Burnley in the second half, but Forest would hold on to the 2-1 road win and stay in the Premier League next season, while Burnley drop a division and look to lose their coach. We'll get more on that later. Luton Town hosted Fulham, hoping for a win in a Nottingham Forest loss, but we already alluded to how the Forest game went. And Luton, they were just hoping for a good result. We'd have a crazy few moments in the half where Adama Traore opened the scoring for Fulham, but then Carlton Morris got one back for Luton in its first half stoppage time, only for Fulham's Raul Jimenez to respond with a penalty in first half stoppage time. So it'd be wild. And then minutes in the second half, Jimenez would get his second in the match, and it was 3-1. Doughty would cut the lead to 3-2, but Harry Wilson put the game away late as Fulham won 4-2 to end their year. The ending of the Premier League season that just left the FA Cup to be played. The final was an all-Manchester affair with the recently crowned champions Man City taking on Manchester United. City looked to be the team more likely to score. However, they were playing without regular starting keeper Ederson, who was out with that eye injury, and that proved to be costly. A long ball sent deep by Man U was read terribly by backup keeper Stefan Ortega. He came way out of his goal. Defender Gavardiol went to head it back to him, not knowing how far he would come out, leading the 19-year-old Argentine Garnacho finding the ball and tapping it into the empty net, giving United the 1-0 lead after 30 minutes. And this seemed to spark the Red Devils, and they'd score again. This time VAR would get involved and call it offsides, denying them their goal. But it was a short-lived denial, as not even a minute later, United would get their second goal in the match, and this one would count. Some nice passing led to Bruno Fernandes finding another 19-year-old Englishman Kobe Minu, who slotted his shot into the back of the net, and Man U led 2-0 after 39 minutes with 2 goals from teenagers. Man City was really pushing to get back into the game, and substitute Jeremy Doku really seemed to bring some excitement to the game. He'd first hit the crossbar, then in the 87th minute, he'd find the back of the net, cutting the lead to 2-1, but that was as close as City would get. Manchester United held on for the big 2-1 win, adding another trophy to their illustrious trophy case. Their 13th FA Cup trophy has them second all-time, one behind Arsenal's leading 14. So with the Premier League wrapping up, FA Cup getting played, we can now look at the table for the last time. I waited until I brought up the FA Cup because that result added some wrinkles on who will play where in Europe next season. I mentioned how Man City has won their 4th consecutive title, 6th and 7th year. 70 years. Arsenal are so close, finishing runner-up, just 2 points behind the champions. Liverpool and Klopp's last dance finished in 3rd. I mentioned Aston Villa finishing surprisingly in 4th. Those 4 clubs will be playing in the Champions League next season. Tottenham's 5th place finish has them playing in the Europa League next season. Chelsea's 6th spot had them playing in the Europa League as well. However, with Manchester United winning the FA Cup, they're bumped up to the Europa League, which pushes Chelsea to the Conference League, which means Newcastle, who thought they were qualified for Europe, they were singing it after the game, they will no longer participate in Europe, which is got to be another tough blow to the Geordie club, which makes you wonder how long they're going to back Eddie Howe. You know, this team has had an influx of money. The new ownership can't be happy with them not qualifying for Europe. So we'll see what happens with Eddie Howe and his future in Newcastle. Excuse me. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I need a sip of water there. We can't mention the winners of the league and European competition participants without mentioning the bottom of the league. The 3 teams that enjoyed the jubilation of promotion last season will be returning back to the EFL Championship next season. Last place Sheffield United, Burnley, and Luton Town, all relegated from the Premier League. We'll see how those clubs can bounce back. And it may be tough for Burnley as they'll be on a hunt for a new manager, as I mentioned. Despite the relegation, Burnley's former manager, Vincent Kompany, signed a 3-year deal to join Bayern Munich of the Bundesliga. It's crazy. You get relegated and you get the Bundesliga job with Bayern Munich. It's crazy. I'll get more to that decision when I get to the Bundesliga, but wow. A few other managing moves in the EPL. I mentioned West Ham going with Lopetegui, Liverpool bringing in Arne Slot, Brighton having that opening spot, some uncertainty with Manchester United and their manager, Erik ten Hag. Like, this is the lowest Man United has ever finished in the Premier League era, in 8th place. However, they capped that season off by winning the FA Cup. So, I mean, what do you do? At times, United have looked pretty bad. But they got some young studs that can grow. Like, I mean, they had 2 19-year-olds score in the FA Cup final. But we'll see. I never thought I'd say it, but I think they got to maybe give Ten Hag another year. We'll see. I don't know how Manchester United fans feel about that. And for the individual stats leaders, Man City's Erling Haaland finished the Golden Boot, leading the league with 27 goals. Chelsea's Cole Palmer had 22 goals. Newcastle's Alexander Isak finished with 21. The assist leader, Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins, finishing with 13 on the year. Chelsea's Cole Palmer finishing in second with 11. What a season he had. And Arsenal's David Raya led all keepers with 16 clean sheets. So before we get out of the England, let's talk about the championship promotion here. We had a promotion playoff semifinal. Second legs go down. Leeds United hosted Norwich City in their second leg, tied up at 0. And this one got ugly quickly. Leeds United would end up winning the match 4-0. Norwich board members must have found the game as ugly as everyone else, as manager David Wagner was sacked less than 24 hours after the loss. The other semi-final second leg, also tied on aggregate, featured Southampton hosting West Brom in another one-sided event. Southampton won the match 3-1, setting up a promotion playoff final with Leeds United and Southampton. This game, it was pretty wild. The opening goal came out of nowhere. A few passes, and suddenly Southampton's Adam Armstrong got the ball in a dangerous spot. Picked the bottom of the corner wonderfully, putting Southampton up 1-0 after 24 minutes. Each team had chances, but none bigger than Leeds substitute Daniel James. Late in the match, he put his shot off the crossbar and it bounced out. Southampton held on for the 1-0 win and punched their ticket to the Premier League, joining championship winners Leicester City and runners-up Ipswich Town. Mad disappointment for Leeds United, as they will have to spend another year in the championship after getting relegated from the Premier League at the end of last season. They were the first team since 1998 to pick up 90 points and not go up automatically. 3 teams that won't be in the championship next season are Birmingham, Huddersfield, and Rotherham. They have all been relegated to League One. Bringing us to League One, we already knew that League One winners Portsmouth and runner-up Derby County were promoted, leaving one spot left via the promotion playoffs. The final went down between Bolton and Oxford United. Bolton had knocked off Barnsley 5-4 on aggregate, while Oxford United squeaked by Peterborough 2-1 on aggregate. Josh Murphy scored a brace in 11 minutes into the first half, putting Oxford United up 2-0, and that's how the game would end. Oxford United move up to the championship. League One differs a little from the top divisions in English footy, with 4 teams getting relegated to League Two. Those teams are Carlisle, Port Vale, Fleetwood, and Cheltenham. Jumping to League Two, we know that league winners Stockport, runners-up Wrexham from Disney, and Mansfield Town are all in promotion to League One, leaving that one spot remaining through, you guessed it, promotion playoffs. Crew Alexandra edged out Doncaster in penalties to make the final, while Crawley Town crushed MK Dons 8-1 on aggregate to get to the final. And in the final, Danilo Orsi scored late in the half for Crawley Town, and then Liam Catley added a second late in the second half, clinching the 2-0 win as Crawley Town punched their ticket to League One. Forest Green and Sutton United had the tough task of trying to get out of the National League as they got relegated. And then in the previous episode, I mentioned how Chesterfield won the National League and Bromley won the promotion playoff final against Solihull Moors in penalties. So those 2 clubs jumping in the AFL, playing in League Two. Leaving England, we're going to Germany. German top division. The Bundesliga came to an end as well. And much like the Premier League, the Bundesliga plays all of their last fixtures of the season, all on the same day, all at the same time. League champion already decided weeks ago. A lot of eyes were on the champions, Bayer Leverkusen, as they hosted Augsburg, looking to make history, as no team had ever gone an entire Bundesliga season undefeated until now. First half goals, Victor Boniface and Robert Andrecht had Leverkusen leading 2-0 at half. Mert Komer would get one back for the visitors, but that was it. Leverkusen cruised their 2-1 home win, wrapping up their magical, historical season. 28 wins, 6 draws, 0 losses. As I said, the first time in Bundesliga history that this has happened. They joined the elusive club with Arsenal back in 2003 and 04 in the Premier League, and Juventus in 2011 and 2012 in Serie A. So congrats to the unbeatens. Bayern Munich went on the road to face Hoffenheim in their season finale. Disappointing season for the Bavarian side as their 11-year reign of champions have come to an end. And a real buzzkill for Harry Kane, who left Tottenham in hopes of a trophy, just not to get one with this league. Bayern Munich looked like they'd easily take the game. 4th-minute goal by Mathis Tell and a 6th-minute goal by Canadian Alphonso Davies, and what could possibly be his last match with the club. But that's where things got turned on its head. Maximilian Bjerre would get one back in the 8th minute to make it 2-1, and Andre Kramaric would explode for a second-half hat trick as Hoffenheim secure the 4-2 home win. Amazing. And that Bayern Munich loss opened the door for a team to catch them in the table. That team is Stuttgart. They were hosting Mönchengladbach to wrap up their season. Serhou Guirassy continued his great scoring ways, scoring a first-half brace, 8 minutes apart. They'd had 2 more goals in the second half, cruised to a 4-0 win, and this was a significant win for Stuttgart. We'll get more about it when we go to the Bundesliga table. Eintracht Frankfurt hosted Leipzig to wrap up their seasons. A late penalty in the first half was converted by Xavi Simons to give the visitors a lead into the break. Just a minute into the second half, Sesko would score and double Leipzig's lead, but Frankfurt would turn it up. They get a goal back through Hugo Ekitike. Then Frankfurt's Omar Marmoush would convert from the penalty spot in the 77th minute, and that game would end in a 2-2 draw. Dortmund hosted bottom of the table Darmstadt, and it was an emotional game as Marco Reus was playing his last home match for the club, a club that he's been with the last 12 seasons. And of course, the Dortmund legend would go out scoring a wonderful goal to add to Ian Matson's opening goal, giving them a 2-0 lead. Julian Brandt would add a third, Daniel Malin a fourth. You have a 4-0 win for Dortmund. The home crowd gave a massive ovation to Reus as he was substituted out of the game late in the match. A nice send-off for the Dortmund icon. He has still one more game left in Dortmund colors. So the German side takes on Real Madrid in the Champions League final, but we'll get more to that in a bit. Heidenheim hosted a soon-to-be relegated Cologne side. 2 early goals by Aaron Dinksey really set the tone for the hosts. They'd add 2 more goals. Stefan Tigges would spoil the clean sheet, but it was an easy 4-1 win for Heidenheim as Cologne drops to the lower division. Sticking with the relegation talk, Union Berlin was hosting Freiburg with 2 teams having much different goals. Union Berlin was sitting in a relegation spot while Freiburg had eyes on European competition. After a scoreless first half, Berlin opened the scoring through a Benedikt Hollaback beauty. As time passed, things were looking good for Union Berlin, but then the 85th minute, Ritsu Doan would equalize with a lovely header for Freiburg. The home crowd looked devastated after the visitors tied it up. And just as the game got into stoppage time, a free kick in the box for Union Berlin led to a 2-handed tackle by the Freiburg defender, resulting in a stoppage time penalty. Talk about pressure on Kevin Volland. He stepped up, put a low shot. It was saved by the keeper, who pushed it off the post where it would bounce to Yannick Haberer, who smashed into the net, and the crowd erupted. 2-1 win for Union Berlin, in a win that looked to save them from relegation. Wow, drama. Another team that was in relegation spot was Mainz. They went on the road to face Wolfsburg. The home side looked to play the spoilers role when Kevin Paredes put Wolfsburg up 1-0 in the 18th minute. But in 6 minutes later, Mainz equalized through Baha and Gruda. Mainz would then take the lead in the second half when Sepp Vanberg scored in the 71st minute. And then they iced the game when Jonathan Burkhart made it 3-1. A massive result for Mainz as they avoided relegation. Can't give enough credit for the job Bo Henriksen has done since he's taken over. The Dane came in and has done magic. This team looked destined for relegation until Henriksen showed up. Got to give them their credit there. Leaving the last game left from the Bundesliga match day, Werder Bremen hosting Bochum, with Mainz and Union Berlin both winning their last matches of the season. Bochum would need at least a draw to avoid playing in the relegation playoff spot. The visitors did not get the start they were hoping for. 6 minutes into the match, Bremen's Marco Friedl would score, giving Bremen the 1-0 lead. The score stayed that way until late in the match, where the home side would double their lead, and then 2 minutes later made it 3-0. Antwi Edje would get one back for Bochum in the 85th minute, but Romano Schmid would add a fourth for the home side. 4-1 win for Bremen. Bochum get leapfrogged by two teams on the table on the last day of this is why you play all the games at the same time. This is craziness. Bochum looked to be safe, and here they are finding themselves tied with Union Berlin with a worse goal differential. So they find themselves in so win and stay in the Bundesliga or lose and drop down. That's so crazy. So before we look at that table and discuss who's going to be playing in Europe, we need to get through the teams that are dropping. We've known the bottom of the table, Darmstadt was getting relegated. For the past few weeks, Köln has also secured their relegation spot. And with Bochum falling into that playoff fixture, they'd have to face off with third place from the second division in Germany, Dusseldorf. Two legs that decide who plays in the Bundesliga. The first leg took place with Bochum hosting Dusseldorf. The lower division side stuck it to Bochum, winning the match 3-0, despite having just 39% of the ball. The second leg just went down yesterday, and it was a total turnaround. Bochum would score 3 unanswered goals to tie the match up on aggregate, force extra time, where we get no goals and we go to penalties. After each team had one shot stopped, the sudden death kickers continued. Goal, goal, goal. Came down the Dusseldorf's Takashi Uchino, stepped up, and he kicked the ball way over the net. It still might be flying, sealing the massive comeback victory for Bochum as they survive another day to play in the Bundesliga next season. So that being said, we know that second division champion St. Pauli and runners-up Holstein Kiel have been promoted. We know Dusseldorf are staying down as Bochum survive that playoff battle. Craziness. Brings us back to the Bundesliga table and the teams that will be playing abroad next season. Obviously, Bundesliga champions Leverkusen will be joined in Champions League play by second place Stuttgart. Yes, you heard that correctly. I mentioned it earlier. With their win combined with a Bayern Munich loss, Stuttgart jumped Bayern Munich in the second place in the league. Massive for them. A huge turnaround as they finished 16th last season. Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund will also play in Champions League. The German top division has secured 5 spots in the Champions League based on their play this season. Dortmund, as said earlier, still have a chance to win the Champions League this upcoming Saturday. Eintracht Frankfurt and Hoffenheim will be playing in the Europa League, while Heidenheim sneak into the Europa Conference League. They did it barely. They had a one goal difference with Werder Bremen to secure that spot. Looking at the Bundesliga stat leaders, Harry Kane did his part for Bayern Munich, scoring a league-leading 36 goals in his first season in Germany. Stuttgart's Sergio Guirassy, who I mentioned earlier, finished second with 28 goals. Leipzig's Luis Openda finished third with 24th. Assists was led by Leverkusen players, Alejandro Grimaldo leading the league with 13 assists. His teammate Florian Wirtz finished with 11, tied with Heidenheim's Jan Nicholas Best, who also had 11. And Lucas Herdecki of Leverkusen led the league in clean sheets with 15. Great season for them. And I mentioned Bayern Munich earlier. Thomas Tuchel is leaving the club, obviously, with Vincent Kompany coming in. So we'll see where Tuchel lands. Some are saying Ten Hag will get fired from Man U and Tuchel will slide in. I don't know about that. I still think they should stick with him one more year. But anyway, one last mention from German footy. The Pokal Cup final was played. Bundesliga champions Leverkusen took on second division side Kaiserslautern. The champs look poised to add more hardware to their ever-growing trophy case. Granit Xhaka put Leverkusen up when he curled a beauty into the top corner. And just before halftime, Leverkusen defender Kasuna would pick up his second yellow card and getting dismissed from the match. Leverkusen will play the whole second half a man down, but it didn't matter. They held on to the 1-0 victory. 2 trophies for Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen as they went unbeaten in all German competition this season. Craziness. We're going to Italy for the Coppa Italia. Atalanta took on Juventus for the Italian Domestic Cup. Juventus would open the scoring just 4 minutes into the match where Dusan Vlahovic would show off his strength, holding off a defender and finding the back of the net. Both teams would get chances, but goal would be hard to come by. None would come by. Juventus held on to the 1-0 win, and they won their 22nd Coppa Italia, the most by any club in Italy. So congrats to Juventus, who have otherwise had a disappointing season by their high standards. And then more craziness for the Juventus as they made a manager change just 2 days after winning the Coppa Italia. Massimiliano Allegri was sacked days after winning his fifth Coppa Italia, which is the most by any manager. There's still uncertainty on the exact reasoning for the dismissal, but a statement released by the club said, Juventus announces that it has relieved Massimiliano Allegri of his role as coach of the men's first team. The dismissal follows certain behaviors during and after the Italian Cup final, which the club deemed incompatible with the values of Juventus, and with that, those who represent it must behave. So I'm thinking some shit definitely went down. And Juventus would finish the season with Paolo Bantero, coach of the Juventus under-19s team, managing the club. With the domestic cup finished, there was still 2 match days left in the season. So we got to roll through this in the boot-shaped nation. The second last fixtures of the season, last year's champions Napoli went on the road to take on Fiorentina. They jump out to an early lead, but 2 goals in 2 minutes put the home side up, requiring Napoli's Georgian star Kvaratskhelia, who equalized in the 57th minute, securing a point for both clubs. Atalanta keeping up their great busy play, going on the road to take on Lecce, getting goals for Charles de Ketelaere and a very on-fire Gianluca Samacca as they won 2-0 on the road. Torino hosted AC Milan and surprisingly took down the Giants of Milan. Goals from Zapata, Ilic, and Ricardo Rodriguez were enough to cancel out an Ismail Benacer's penalty. Big 3-1 win for Torino. Cagliari went on the road to take on Sassuolo. 2 goals in the last 20 minutes of the match gave Cagliari the massive 2-0 victory. And this win was huge as it preserved Cagliari's place in the Serie A for next season. Legendary manager Claudio Ranieri, you may remember that name as he guided Leicester City to their magical and surprising Premier League title in 2015-16. He managed his team, Cagliari, to safety, and he's got history with this club. Ranieri took over Cagliari in 1988 when they were in Serie C. He led them to Serie B promotion the following year and promotion to the top flight the following season. After saving the team from relegation the next season, Ranieri left the club with promises of a return. He returned to the club last season to promote them out of Serie B. And just this past season, he saved them from getting relegated. A perfect send-off to the 72-year-old manager who is loved by everywhere he's coached. He's officially announcing his retirement. We wish the best to him. The game will miss him, but wonderful coaching. That Leicester City title-winning season will never be forgotten. So props to Claudio Ranieri. In a game that featured 2 teams that were desperate for a win to avoid relegation, Udinese hosted Empoli. It was a scoreless game until the 90th minute, so you think it's going to be a tie? Nope. Empoli's Mbe Nyang would score in the 90th minute to grab the lead, and then deep in stoppage time, Udinese would get awarded a penalty where Samardzic would convert from the spot, ending the game in a 1-1 draw. A tough go, because each team was really hoping for a win. I mean, a point's a point. Monza hosted Frosinone, with the latter looking to try and survive the relegation battle. The visitors would open the scoring in the 9th minute with Walid Khedira finding the back of the net, and they'd take the 1-0 win, a massive 3 points for Frosinone. Champions of the Serie A season, Inter Milan hosted Lazio, where Lazio opened the scoring in the first half through Kamada. It looked like Lazio may get the upset, but Denzel Dumfries scored in the 87th minute to preserve the draw. Roma hosted Genoa, and after a scoreless first half, there'd be some drama. Leandro Paredes would get consecutive yellow cards, get dismissed from the match, and that kind of sparked the 10-man side. And Roma would open the scoring with Romelu Lukaku finding the back of the net, and that'd be the difference as Roma won 1-0 despite being a man down. Bottom of the table, Salernitana hosted Verona. 2 first-half goals by the visitors really set the tone. The hosts would get one back in the 90th minute, but Verona would hold on for the 2-1 road win. Thrilling match between two European competition-bound clubs. That's a mouthful. Bologna hosted Juventus, and Bologna scored 2 goals in the first 11 minutes. First, Riccardo Calafiore, followed by Santiago Castro. Then early in the second half, Calafiore would secure his brace, scoring and putting Bologna up 3-0 after 53 minutes. That third goal really woke up Juventus with their interim manager, and they'd get 3 goals in 8 minutes to tie the game up. Chiesa would get the first, the 76th, the Milik in the 83rd, followed by Yildiz less than a minute later. A wild game that tasted like Bologna, but Juventus would draw it and finish 3-3. That fury of games led into the wild finale of the match day. And this is a little different in the Serie A. It's a little different than in England and Germany. Italy has their last fixtures stretched out over a weekend. None of this all played at the same time, which seems weird with the country that's had match fixing. You think you wouldn't want to leave that door open. But anywho, Cagliari hosted Fiorentina in their season. Cagliari were still riding high after clinching another season in the top division. Fiorentina would open the scoring. The home side would equalize in the second half. But in the 86th minute, Cagliari would go ahead through a Kingston Matandwa goal, only for Nicolas Gonzalez to equalize 4 minutes later. Then deep in the stoppage time, Fiorentina would get a penalty, and Arthur would score from the spot, giving Fiorentina the big 3-2 road victory. Not the perfect send-off for the retiring Claudio Ranieri, but he still gets to walk off into the sunset knowing he helped save this club from relegation. Kudos to you, sir. Genoa hosted Champions League bound Bologna to end the season. They get a first half goal by Milnowski and a second half goal by Vitinha. And that led to Genoa escaping with a 2-0 home win, despite Bologna possessing 74% of the ball. And despite the loss, Bologna is still finishing in the top 5 and will be playing Champions League footy next year. Amazing the job Thiago Motta has done with this club. Juventus hosted Monza to end the season, and Juventus would get 2 first-half goals within minutes of each other. Federico Chiesa, one of my favorite players to watch in Italy, scored in the 26th, followed by Alexandro in the 28th. Those 2 goals were the difference as Juventus took the 2-0 win. A weird end of the campaign for Juventus, who are looking for a new manager. The rumor mill has been in full motion, or some are saying that just mentioned Thiago Motta of Bologna is lined up to take the job. That would be a brutal blow for Bologna, but Juventus, they'll be salivating at the idea of bringing someone like Motta in. AC Milan have sort of coasted to the end of the season. Once Inter Milan had the title clinch, AC Milan looked quite content just finishing in second place. They hosted bottom of the table Salernitana to wrap up the season. Rafael Leao opened the scoring for Milan in the 22nd minute, and Olivier Giroud doubled their lead in the 27th. A nice parting goal for Giroud as he's joining LAFC in the MLS. An amazing landing spot for both parties. Wenko got a goal back for the visitors to make it 2-1, but Calabria scored in the 77th minute to make it 3-1. The last place Cub did not quit, though. Junior Sambia scored in the 87th, and then Wenko scored his second of the match in the 89th. A crazy ending as Salernitana come back to finish 3-3 with AC Milan. They didn't have a lot of good things this season, but at least they can hang their hat on that last game of the year. Feels like we've been talking a lot about Atalanta lately as they have so many games. They hosted Torino and the home side crushed them. First half goals by 2 players that have been scoring machines lately. Samaka and Adamola Lukman had Atalanta up 2-0 at halftime. Pasalic would score from the penalty spot in the 71st to clinch the 3-0 win for Atalanta. They've been on fire. Last year's Serie A winners entered their season the way it's kind of gone all year. They dominated the ball, owning 68% of it throughout the game, and more than doubled the visiting Lecce's shot. However, the game would end in a scoreless draw. Finishing in 10th place after winning the title last year has to be really disappointing for Napoli. Empoli was hosting Roma, looking to survive the relegation battle and stay in the Serie A next season. The home side got the perfect start when Matteo Cancelleri would score just 13 minutes into the match. Roma looked to equalize, but VAR found the shot offsides. No. And the dying seconds of the first half, Roma would equalize for reals when Husa Maiore would find the back of the net. And the game stayed tied at 1 for a long time, and you could sense the urgency in the home crowd. Then the 3rd minute of stoppage time, substitute, Niang would score, putting Empoli up 2-1, and they'd hold on for the massive win. They did their part. They would just need a little help to try and survive. Which brings us to the match Empoli fans were keeping their eyes on. Frosinone hosting Udinese. Coming into the match, Frosinone held the upper hand. If they could get a draw or a win, they'd stay in the Serie A. We know Empoli won, as I just told you that. So this match was huge. It was a very nervy game with both teams looking to try and get the win. The game stayed scoreless until the 76th minute when Udinese's substitute, Keenan Davis, would smash the ball in the back of the net, giving the visitors a 1-0 lead with less than 15 minutes to go in the match. It'd be a wild ending, but Udinese would hold on for the 1-0 win. Those 2 results led to Empoli and Udinese jumping up the table while Frosinone dropped into the relegation zone. Getting relegated. What a brutal end to the season for them. Jubilation for Udinese and their manager, Italian legend Fabio Cannavaro, as their club stays up and they'll be playing in Serie A next season. The Serie A champions ended their season on the road taking on Verona. Former West Ham man Marko Arnautovic opened the score in the 10th minute for Inter. Verona would respond with Noslin tying it up 5 minutes later, and Thomas Suslov putting Verona ahead in the 37th minute. It would take a first half stoppage time goal again by Arnautovic, making it 2-2, which is just how the game would end. Lazio hosted relegation-bound Sassuolo to end their campaigns. The first half didn't bring any goals, but we'd see 2 goals in a 6-minute span. Mattias Agani would put Lazio up in the 60th. Mattia Vitti would respond for Sassuolo in the 66th. The game would end in a 1-1 draw. And now that should be the end of the season. Well, not quite. Atalanta, who has tons of games, still has 1 match left as they host Fiorentina. You may remember from this very podcast when I mentioned how that game, which was scheduled for March 17th, was postponed due to Fiorentina's general manager Giuseppe Joe Barone falling ill, which he would eventually pass away from said illness. A sad event, which was a good reason to postpone a match. Atalanta and Fiorentina have been doing so well in European competitions that there was no time to get this match played. So it will be played Sunday, June 2nd, and that'll officially wrap up the Serie A. So with the last game still to be played, let's look at the table. As mentioned, Inter Milan had the Serie A wrapped up a while ago, finishing 19 points ahead of runner-ups AC Milan. Juventus sit in 3rd place, 4 points back. But they still may be passed on the table. I said, Atalanta has that extra game. They're in 4th place, 2 points back of Juventus. So if they win that last fixture, they could jump Juventus and finish 3rd in the league. And I also mentioned Bologna finishing 4th in the league. Very impressive for them. Roma qualified to play in next season's Europa League, as well as Lazio. Fiorentina is qualified for the Conference League next season. However, if Fiorentina can win that competition in the final against Olympiacos, they will get bumped up to the Europa League, and Torino would find themselves in Conference League next season, which means that Italy could potentially have 9 teams playing in European competition. People say best leagues in the world. I mean, look at those numbers right there. The bottom of the table, we've known Salernitana was getting relegated for some time. The club finished with only 2 wins on the season. Sassuolo also knew they were going down for the last match of the season. The big shocker, really, is Frosinone. As I said, they were coming in the last weekend of the season feeling good. They were in the driver's seat. They just needed not to lose to Udinese, and they would have been safe. Or if they lost like they did, they wouldn't have needed Empoli not to win. But we knew both of those things didn't go their way. A terrible feeling for Frosinone, as they probably felt like they were safe, and now they gone. Joining the Serie A next season is Serie B winners Parma and runners-up Como, who have Arsenal legend Cesc Fabregas on their staff. He was an interim manager earlier in the season, but had to step away to get his managing license in order. The 3rd team that will be joining this group is yet to be determined. The promotional playoff semifinals took place with Venezia beating Palermo 3-1 on aggregate and Cremonese beating US Catanzaro 6-3 on aggregate. So this sets up a 2-leg bout between Cremonese and Venezia. These teams meet Thursday, May 30th in the first leg, with the second leg being played Sunday, June 2nd. Looking at our goal leaders, champions of Italy, Inter Milan had their striker Lautaro Martinez lead the league in goals with 24. Second place was Dusan Vlahovic with 16. AC Milan's Olivier Giroud and Napoli's Victor Osimhen finished in 3rd with 15 goals. 3-way tie for assist leader in Italy, Juventus American-born player Weston McKennie, AC Milan's Rafael Leao, and Roma's Paulo Dybala all finished with 9 assists on the season. Inter Milan's Jan Sommer led the Serie A in clean sheets with 19 on the season. Which brings us to Spain, and perhaps the busiest league in between episodes was the La Liga in Spain. The time between last episode, each team played out their last 3 games. I'm obviously not going to jump into the specifics of each game, but I'll quickly get us brought up to speed at the last weekend of the season. And it's similar to the Serie A. La Liga spread out their matches on the last match week rather than playing them all at the same time like in England and Germany. So match day 36 was all midweek play. Mallorca would equalize on the road in the second half to secure a 1-1 draw with Osasuna. Real Madrid hosted Alaves and absolutely smashed them, owning 72% of the ball, winning 5-0. Bellingham scored, Vinicius Jr. scored 2, Valverde and Güler each added 1. Girona hosted Villarreal and owned 67% of the ball, but it was Bertrand Traore's goal in the 59th minute that clinched the road win for Villarreal. Rayo Vallecano hosted Granada in a big matchup. Things look bad for Rayo Vallecano when they go a man down just 5 minutes into the match. It's originally called yellow, but upgraded to a red, and they'd have to play 85 minutes a man down. Didn't seem to bother them, though, as they opened the scoring in the 3rd minute and doubled their lead in the 80th. Boye would get one back for Granada, but it was too little too late. Big 2-1 win for Rayo Vallecano, which really helped set them up for survival in the La Liga next season. Cadiz went on the road to take on Sevilla, knowing they needed to win to keep their very slim chances of avoiding relegation alive. They looked destined for a tie until the 96th minute, where Guardiola would score to give Cadiz the 1-0 win. Celta Vigo hosted Athletic Bilbao and looked like the favorites in the match, despite being much lower in the table. Bilbao opened the scoring in the 23rd minute through Romero, but in the second half, Celta Vigo turned it up. 2 goals in 3 minutes. Svedberg in the 68th, followed by Oliveira's game winner in the 71st. Massive 2-1 comeback for Celta Vigo. Atletico went on the road to take on Getafe. Antoine Griezmann hat-trick gave the visitors an easy 3-0 win. Struggling Las Palmas side hosted Real Betis, not having a win in their last 12, not even registering a point in their last 8. Real Betis would open the scoring through an own goal, but Las Palmas answered 6 minutes later. The second half, Real Betis went up again, only for Las Palmas to answer again, securing a point in the 2-2 draw and ending their 8-game pointless streak. Barcelona went on the road to take bottom of the table Almeria. 2 goals by Fermin Lopez led to an easy Barca road win. Real Sociedad hosted Valencia to wrap up the midweek fixtures. Andre Silva scored just 3 minutes into the match, gives Sociedad the lead, and that'd be the only goal. If you missed it, you probably missed out. Big home win for Real Sociedad. Those midweek fixtures led into the second last match day of the La Liga season, it kicking off with Alaves hosting Getafe. 12th minute goal by Carlos Vicente would put Alaves up, and that'd be the only goal of the match as they won 1-0. Barcelona hosted Rayo Vallecano and easily dismantled their visitors. 3 minutes in, Robert Lewandowski would score for Barca. Pedri would score 2 goals within 3 minutes of each other in the second half. Easy 3-0 win for Barca, where they had 72% of the ball. Granada hosted Celta Vigo looking for a much-needed win, and after a scoreless first half, Celta Vigo would get 2 goals within minutes of each other. Jorgen Strand Larsen would score in the 61st and Jonathan Bamba in the 63rd. Bruno Mendes got one back late for Granada, but again, too little too late as Celta Vigo would go on the road and win their second match in a row. Valencia hosted Girona, and it was a game dominated by the visitors. First half goal by Savio set the pace. Artem Dovbyk doubled Girona's lead, and a Valencia own goal made it 3-0. Papilu would get one back, a late penalty to ruin the clean sheet, but it was all Girona as they won 3-1. One of the more surprising results of match day 37 was Osasuna going on the road to face Atletico Madrid and crushing Atletico 4-1. Atletico Madrid took a punch in the punch to the mouth and just never recovered. Fantastic performance by Osasuna. Cadiz hosted Las Palmas, needing a win to, like I said, keep those very slim survival hopes alive. It was an evenly played match, and things got interesting when Cadiz went a man down in the 74th minute. Las Palmas looked to have a goal-scoring opportunity until Victor Chust made a literal tackle, resulting in a direct red card, and that was it for excitement. This game ended 0-0. Not the result Cadiz were looking for, as they're probably relegated now. We'll get more there. But Las Palmas, look at them securing points in back-to-back matches after going 8 without one. Very good for them. Real Betis hosted Real Sociedad in a real battle. 2 first-half goals by the visitors, a 5th-minute goal by Mendes, and a 42nd-minute goal by Marino had Real Sociedad up 2-0 going in the half. Real Betis cranked up the pressure and never found their goal, so big 2-0 win for Sociedad. Mallorca hosted Almeria in an exciting bout. Canadian Kyle Larin opened the scoring for the home side, only for Sergio Arribas to equalize just before halftime. The bottom of the table side looked to take the lead when Bruno Langa would score. The visitors looked destined to win, but Sergi Dardo would tie things up in the 83rd. A fun match that ended in a 2-2 draw. Villarreal hosted Real Madrid in a high-scoring affair, a game that featured numerous shots, had numerous goals, combined 8 goals in this fixture, with 6 of them coming in the first half. Ardagula put Real Madrid up 1-0 in the 14th, and Joselu would double the lead in the 30th. Norwegian Alexander Sorloth would get a goal back 9 minutes later, only for Madrid to immediately respond through Lucas Vasquez. Guler would get his second of the match, and Real Madrid led 4-1 at the break. And that's where we would see the big Norwegian takeover. Alexander Sorloth would score 3 goals in 8 minutes in the second half, giving him 4 goals on the match, and Villarreal would hold on for the 4-4 draw against the La Liga champions. The match day wrapped up with Athletic Bilbao hosting Sevilla. Bilbao scored 2 goals within minutes of each other. Raul Garcia in the 17th and Iker Munian in the 19th, giving Bilbao a 2-0 lead, which is how the game would end. Those fixtures I just mentioned is less into the last weekend of the La Liga season. And the weekend, like I said, not all games are at the same time. So the weekend kicked off with Girona dropping a touchdown on Granada. This game looked like a tilted pool table as the ball was just in one area most of the match. Artem Dovbyk scored a hat trick. Viktor Shinkov scored a brace. And Eric Garcia and Christian Stuani each kicked in a goal. An absolute beatdown by Girona. Granada finished the season terribly, losing 5 in a row to end their season. That game is a nice lead up into the Saturday fixtures where Almeria hosted Cadiz in their last match of the season. Almeria had been sitting in the basement of the division most of the season, and Cadiz didn't have much to play for after their last result against Las Palmas. Almeria looked like a team playing for pride and avoiding last place in the division, while Cadiz looked like a dejected team that knew that they will be relegated. That combination led to a beatdown. Cadiz opened the scoring in the 30th minute through Ocampo, but like Newfound Glory saying, it's all downhill from here. Almeria would come out shooting in the second half. Gonzalo Malero would score. Arribas would score a brace. And Luis Suarez, no, not that Luis Suarez, would score a brace as well. Throw in a Cadiz own goal, and you have an outrageous 6-1 home win for Almeria. Combine that with the Granada loss I just mentioned, Almeria are even on points with Granada and have a better goal differential and find themselves finally out of the basement of La Liga. Osasuna were coming off their big win and hosted Villarreal. Budimir would open the scoring the 30th minute, and Villarreal's Morales would equalize in the 57th, and that's how the game would end, 1-1. Real Sociedad hosted Atletico Madrid, as Madrid was looking to avenge their loss the week before. Visitors opened the scoring through a Samuel Lino shot, and despite the home side actually having more of the possession, Atletico would get another goal in the match. Mandava would score in stoppage time, securing the 2-0 win. Rayo Vallecano would host Athletic Bilbao to end their season despite owning 64% of the ball. Rayo Vallecano would find themselves down in the match. Nico Williams scored in the 67th minute, giving Atletico Bilbao the 1-0 win. Real Madrid hosted Real Betis, and this game would end in a scoreless draw, but that wasn't the reason people were tuning in. People were watching to see legendary German footballer Toni Kroos play his last La Liga match for Real Madrid. Both teams gave Kroos a guard of honor before his last match in front of the Real Madrid faithful at the iconic Bernabeu, and he received a wonderful send-off, and the 34-year-old is still playing at an elite level, retiring from the game on top, but it won't be the last you see of him. There's still the Champions League final to Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund, plus Toni Kroos said he's suiting up for Germany at the Euros this summer, one last time to represent his country in his home country. One of the best midfielders ever to lace them up, and that is not a hyperbole. We'll go to Getafe hosting Mallorca, and after a scoreless first half, Getafe's Gaston Alvarez would open the scoring. As the game went on, it looked like the home team had things wrapped up until the 90th minute. Mariki would equalize, and then the 93rd, Maffeo would put Mallorca up 2-1, and that late goal would prove to be the winner. A massive comeback victory. 2 goals in a 3-minute span in stoppage time. What a crazy finish. Celta Vigo hosted Valencia, an exciting bout, a game that featured an own goal 5 minutes in, a penalty scored by each team with an equalizer coming on second of those penalties. A fun game that ended in a fair 2-2 draw. Las Palmas hosted Alaves to end their campaign after a scoreless first half. Visiting Alvarez would open the scoring the 50th minute. Las Palmas equalized in the 71st through Marc Cardona, and that's how the game would end. Decent finish to the season for Las Palmas, who ended their season with 3 straight draws, but they still hadn't won a game since February 10th when they beat Valencia 2-0. Luckily, they started the season so well, and it was enough to keep them playing in La Liga next season. The La Liga season wrapped up with Sevilla hosting Barcelona. The visitors opened the scoring through Robert Lewandowski in the 15th minute. Yusuf En-Nesyri would tie things up for Sevilla in the 31st, but in the 59th minute, Fermin Lopez would score the winner for Barca, immediately running into the arms of manager Xavi. The Barcelona legend, who was managing his last game with the club, is on the way out. And Xavi has said his successor will suffer in the role, emphasizing how difficult the job is and how much patience will be needed with this team going forward. It's rumored former Germany and Bayern Munich boss Hansi Flick is slated to replace Xavi, but like the Spanish legend said, it'll be a tough but highly coveted job. The fury of 3 matches in a short time frame can really shake things up, not so much as the top. We knew Real Madrid had secured the championship. They finished 10 points ahead of second place Barcelona. Girona shocked the world, finishing in third place in La Liga, just 4 points behind second place Barca. And it was the first time a team has broken into the top three that isn't Real Madrid, Barcelona, or Atletico Madrid. Again, amazing what this club has done. In the fourth and final Champions League spot, Atletico Madrid, Athletic Bilbao, and Real Sociedad qualified for Europa League, and Real Betis qualified for Conference League play. Looking at the bottom of the table, Granada's fall in the last place, had them getting relegated. Almeria showed some late season fight, but it wasn't enough as they also got relegated. And Cadiz had some late season wins, but they fell short and were relegated as well. There's still one match day remaining in La Liga too, so as of now, we only know Valladolid has clinched promotion. They have a 1 point lead over second place Lejeune, who could potentially win the league on the last day of the season. They haven't clinched their spot yet, though, because if they lose an Eibar win with a few goals to swing goal differential, Lejeune will find them playing in a promotional playoff. It's looking like both Valladolid and Lejeune should be getting promoted, setting up a potential playoff between Eibar, Espanyol, Oviedo, and Racing. However, if Oviedo and Racing lose and Sporting Gijon win, then those teams would switch spots. Drama everywhere, I tell you. Maybe not the most household names at the top of the La Liga scoring list this past season, but names to remember going forward. Girona's magical season was sparked by talisman Artem Dovbyk, who led La Liga with 24 goals. Just behind him in second place is Villarreal's Alexander Sorloth. May remember him talking about him earlier in the segment where he had 4 goals against Real Madrid. Third spot was shared by two more popular names, Barcelona's Robert Lewandowski and Real Madrid's Jude Bellingham, who both finished with 19 goals on the season. Heck of a first year for Jude Bellingham in La Liga. La Liga assist leader on the season was Villarreal's Alex Baena. He led the league with 14 assists. Just behind him was Girona's Savio and Athletic Bilbao's Nico Williams. They each finished with 11 on the season. Athletic Bilbao's Unai Simon led the league in clean sheets with 17. We go to France. The French top division came to a wrap as well, and they were a little similar to UK and Germany the way they finished their season. All games, all the same time, same day. Reims hosted Rennes, and the home side would get 2 goals in the second half to take a 2-0 lead. Fabian Ryder would get one back for Rennes, but that is close as they get. Reims picked up the 2-1 win. Le Havre hosted Marseille in another match that didn't have any first half goals. The visitors would get 2 goals in 13 minutes and take the 2-0 lead. Mohamed Bayo would get one back in stoppage time for the home side, but it wasn't enough. Marseille held on for the 2-1 road win. Lens hosted Montpellier and scored 2 goals in the first half to take a 2-0 lead in the halftime. But it was a literal tale of two halves, and Montpellier would score 2 goals of their own in the second half to secure the 2-2 draw. Going to some matches had some Champions League implications on the line. We'll start with Toulouse hosting Brest. Brest needed a win, and Brest went into Toulouse and got one. Again, 3 goals, all coming in the second half, securing the big 3-0 victory. Brest had done their job, and they would need to look for some help. Lille would battle it out with Nice, knowing a win would get them in the Champions League. Nice got off to the nicer start, Laborde scoring 10 minutes in. Haraldson would tie things up in the 55th, and Benjamin Andre would give Lille the lead in the 73rd minute. Things were looking good for the Lille, but then in stoppage time, Latombo would equalize for Nice, temporarily breaking Lille's hearts in the process with the draw. Metz hosted a PSG club with a very slim chance of getting out of the relegation playoff. PSG killed those chances early. A 7th-minute goal by Soler, followed by a 12th-minute goal by Lee Kang in. PSG had 77% of the ball. Easy 2-0 victory. Monaco hosted Nantes and crushed them 4-0. 4 different goal scorers and 62% of the ball will usually result in a one-sided victory. Lyon hosted Strasbourg, and an Alexander Lacazette brace canceled out a 63rd-minute goal by Habib Diarra. Granted, the game winner was a stoppage time penalty for Lacazette. He scored when called upon, and Lyon escaped with a 2-1 victory. What an amazing turnaround for Lyon, who started the season with 0 wins in their first 10 games, and they finished 6th in the league. That's amazing. Lorient hosted Clermont-Foot, looking to end their 9-game winless streak, and they ended it with a bang. Lorient could not stop scoring, cruising to a 5-0 victory over Clermont-Foot. That wraps up the season in Ligue 1. PSG had the title wrapped up for a while now, finishing 9 points ahead of second place Monaco. And in the third spot, Brest found themselves, surprisingly, how they got into that spot. Lille, they enter the qualifying stages of the Champions League. They would have had a guaranteed spot if they would have won that game. So that that's how their heart got broken a little, but they can still play in Champions League here. The Europa League spots will be going to Nice and Lyon. Lens have been confirmed to participate in the Conference League next season, although there could be some issues with Nice playing in the Europa League. Manchester United owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe's INEOS investment group also own the French club Nice. UEFA rules prevent multi-club ownership in one tournament. So if this issue does not get resolved, potentially one of those teams would have to get dropped into the Conference League. And I'm not sure Sir Jim is going to want to drop Man United. So Nice could be getting the tough end of the stick there. We'll have to see what happens in the unfolding weeks here. Last place Clermont Foot and Lorient both clinched their relegation, while League Two winners Auxerre and Angers have both clinched their promotion. Metz will be battling it out with lower division Saint Etienne to see who plays in Ligue 1 next season. The relegation playoff final is 2 legs, with the first taking place Thursday, May 30th, and the second going down June 2nd on Sunday. The Ligue 1 Golden Boot winner was PSG's Kylian Mbappe. He led the league with 27 goals. He'll be a hard person to replace as he leaves PSG for a new club this summer. Most are thinking Real Madrid. Most are thinking, Real Madrid. Canadian Jonathan David from Lille shares the runner-up title with Lyon's Alexander Lacazette, both players with 19 goals on the season. Some are saying Jonathan David may be coming to the Prem. That'd be cool to see. I'd love to see another Canadian in there. 3-way tie for assists in the French top division. PSG's Ousmane Dembele, Lyon's Angel Gomez, and Brest's Romain Del Castillo all led the league with 8 assists. Nice Marcin Boca led the keepers with 17 clean sheets. One last mention in French, the Coupe de France, or French Cup, whichever you want to say, and went down with Lyon taking on PSG in what was probably Kylian Mbappe's last appearance with the club. Ousmane Dembele opened the scoring, and Fabien Ruiz would double the Parisian side's lead. Jake O'Brien would get one back in the second half, but it wasn't enough as PSG added another trophy to their case with a 2-1 win over Lyon. Mentioned the big 5 leagues I always cover when I talk about European footy, but let's do a quick map check here and do some other shout outs that I don't always shout out these leagues, so let's give them some credit here. Netherlands, PSV won the Eredivisie, finishing 7 points ahead of last year's winners and runners-up Feyenoord. Celtic won the Scottish Premier League again, finishing 8 points ahead of rivals Rangers. Sporting won the Liga Portugal, finishing 10 points ahead of Benfica. In Belgium, Club Brugge narrowly won the Belgian Pro League. In Austria, Sturm Graz ended Salzburg's 10-year reign of terror in the country, winning the league by 2 points over previous champions. We'll go to Turkey. Galatasaray won the league with a 3-point cushion over second-place Fenerbahce. In Greece, PAOK won the league, but just barely, finishing 2 points ahead of runners-up AEK Athens and 6 points ahead of third-place Olympiacos. I know it's not in Europe, but I got to mention this league. The Saudi Pro League concluded. Al Hilal secured the title by going unbeaten throughout their season. They went full Leverkusen, did not lose a game all season in league play. Former Fulham frontman Alexander Mitrovic led the team in scoring with 28, while Al Nassr's Cristiano Ronaldo set a new single-season goal tally in the league with 35 goals. His team did finish runner-up in the league. So 2 years in Saudi Arabia, lots of CR7 goals, but no titles in the league. So a lot of good individual stuff there. And he's making tons of cash. So those are the leagues. We'll go to some UEFA tournaments here. Fresh off going unbeaten in the Bundesliga for an entire season, Leverkusen took on Italian side Atalanta in the Europa League final. They look to have a little bit of a hangover as Atalanta looked the more dangerous team. They get their goal through Ademola Lookman, who opened the scoring in the 12th minute, and Lookman would get his brace in the 26th minute. The things were getting a little nervy for Leverkusen, who hadn't lost all season in all competitions. And they were pushing, but Lookman would get another goal, scoring a hat-trick in the Europa League final, propelling Atalanta to a 3-0 win, giving Leverkusen their first loss in all competition this season. They were 51-0 coming in. Can't give enough credit to Atalanta. We'll go to the Conference League, the smaller cousin of the Europa League. Its final going down Wednesday, May 29th. Oh, that's tomorrow. Uh, it should be a doozy with Italian side Fiorentina going into Greece to take on Greek side Olympiacos. It'll almost feel like a home game for the Greek side, as a Greek club has never been in a European Cup final, and this game will be going on in Athens, so it's going to get crazy. And like I said earlier in the show, if Fiorentina win the Conference League final, they'll move up to the Europa League, and Torino will take their spot in the Conference League, so you know who they'll be cheering for. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer for Torino, but I feel Olympiacos is going to win this league. I feel they are destined to become the first Greek side to win a European competition. This home field advantage is going to look crazy. And poor Fiorentina, see them losing their second straight Conference League final. They lost to my West Ham last year, and I just see them drop into Olympiacos this year. Those two European matches set up the granddaddy of them all, the Champions League final. The champions! Featuring the champions of Spain, Real Madrid, taking on German side Borussia Dortmund. I've talked about it a few times on this show already. Two German legends suiting up for their clubs for the last time. Toni Kroos retiring from footy after Euros, and Marco Reus leaving Dortmund after 12 years with the club. This should be an outstanding match at Wembley. I hate to say it because I'd love to see Dortmund win this, but I think Real Madrid takes this thing, possibly winning 3-1. That final goes down Saturday, June 1st. Put it in front of your eyes. We'll go to the baseball world. There's been some great excitement, and there's been some disappointments as well, mostly involving injuries, but we'll get to that. We'll start with the Toronto Blue Jays, the jersey I'm wearing now. A team I'll get more into in the short section of this podcast. But after last episode, I was still in shock after the Jays had beaten the Orioles in Baltimore, only for the Orioles to beat the Jays in the rematch, which I figured would happen. The Jays would then host the Rays where the games were close, and the Rays would beat Toronto 2 out of 3 times, which led into a series with the Chicago White Sox, where the Jays beat up on Chicago to take that first game of the series, just to be 2 hit the next game in Game 2. WTF, mate. Jays bats woke up again for the rubber match, and they took the series 2-1. Toronto then would go on the road to face the Detroit Tigers, and they got a great start when they went in Detroit and crushed them 9-1. The Jays would then go on to lose the next 3 games in Detroit, losing 6-2, losing 2-1. Then a crazy game that ended up with a walk-off home run as the Tigers won 14-11. Dalton Varsho put the Jays up with a 3-run homer in the 8th inning, only for the Tigers to tie it up in the bottom of the 8th, and Matt Vierling would take Jordan Romano yard for a 3-run walk-off home run. Brutal series in Detroit where the Jays only took 1 of 4, but the Jays have another 3-game series against the White Sox, this time in Chicago, and the Jays got off to a great start in that series. Chris Bassett only went 5 innings, but the bullpen actually did their thing and held the White Sox from scoring more than 1 run. 3 home runs by the Jays were the difference. Davis Schneider, Bo Bichette, George Springer each went yard in the win. Toronto faces off with the White Sox 2 more times. One's probably going on right now, so you might want to tune into that and come back after. But Toronto, they face off with the White Sox, like I said, before going home to host the Pittsburgh Pirates in interleague play. Could be the first time the Jays get to see outstanding Pirates rookie pitcher Paul Skeens. He's the real deal. I want to see that game. All this Blue Jays talk makes me want to look at the American League East division. Toronto still resides in the basement of that division, sitting 5 games under 500. New York Yankees have a slim lead over the Orioles atop the division. The Sox are at around 500. Rays 1 game back of them. The Red Sox did witness some history with their club, which is always big, as they've been around forever. Rafael Devers became the first Red Sox player to hit a home run in 6 straight games. Muy caliente. One of the toughest divisions in baseball is living up to its name, but there's beginning to get a little gap between those 2 teams at the top of the division. The Yankees and Orioles are kind of running away with it. We'll go to the AL Central, in one of the better divisions in baseball this season. The Cleveland Guardians have a small division lead over the Kansas City Royals. Twins are just a few games back of them, and the Tigers sit 1 game under 500. Some nice wins they got over the Jays there. And much like their current opponents, the Chicago White Sox sit in the basement of their division. The AL West has been mediocre at best this season. The Mariners are the only team above 500 and lead the division. Behind them, Rangers, Astros, Athletics, and the basement-sitting Angels. If one of these teams could just go on a run, they'd probably lead the division. Going to the National League, I'll start in the NL East. The Philadelphia Phillies are increasing their lead over second place Atlanta. The Braves were dealt another tough blow. Last year's National League MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr., tore his ACL. Ugh. He'll miss the rest of the season. Brutal to see one of the league's superstars go through a massive injury again. Hate to see it. The Nationals, Mets, and Marlins are all below those teams under 500, although the Marlins have won 6 of the last 10, which is saying a lot for the Marlins. Going to the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers have a 4.5 game lead over the Cubs, who have been really slumping. The Cubs only picking up 2 wins in their last 10. St. Louis was sitting in the basement of the division for a chunk of the season, but their recent play is reminding us of how the Cardinals are usually looking. The Pirates and Reds are just behind them, but the division is pretty close, to be honest. The Brewers seem to be cruising now, but the Cubs or Cardinals could easily go on a run and catch them. Finishing in the National League West, the LA Dodgers have really cooled down a bit. Losers of 5 in a row, dropping 2 of the Diamondbacks and getting swept 3-game series with the Reds. First time the club has lost 5 in a row since 2019. Dodgers are looking to get back on their winning ways in a 3-game series with the Mets. San Francisco Giants and Padres both currently sit 1 game over 500. The Giants have been hot lately, winning 9 of their last 11. The Diamondbacks hovering around the 500 mark, while the Rockies sit in the basement of their division. Some big news involving one of the most controversial umpires in Major League Baseball. Angel Hernandez is retiring effective immediately. It was reported by Bob Nightingale of USA Today. And according to the report, Hernandez and the MLB have spent the last 2 weeks negotiating a financial settlement. Hernandez has said he wants to spend more time with family, but you have to think it was the pressure of everybody outside counting his mistake after mistake. Hernandez got to live out his dream, umpiring in the big leagues, but now the 62-year-old gets to enjoy retirement, which probably makes tons of major league players happy. It's pretty wild. He's forced into retirement on a financial deal. Like, that's crazy. Wow. Getting paid to leave your job because you're just not that good at it. Yikes. In F1, we had 2 races since last episode, so let's race through them. Coming off his first career Grand Prix win in Formula One, McLaren's Lando Norris was looking to repeat the feat. The Emilia-Romagna GP was actually coming down to the wire, with Red Bull's Max Verstappen trying to hold off Lando. Verstappen was able to hold him off and win by just 0.725 seconds. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc finished in 3rd to round out the podium. McLaren's Oscar Piastri finished 4th. While Ferrari's Carlos Sainz finished 5th. Max's Red Bull teammate, Sergio Perez, all the way back in 8th. Quick turnaround at F1, going to one of its trademark tracks, the Monaco Grand Prix. You could see the yacht setting up, leading up. Things were looking good for local boy Charles Leclerc as he won pole position for the race, and things continued to get better for Charles as he would hold on to win the Monaco Grand Prix for the first time in his career. You could see how much it meant to him after the race to win in his homeland. McLaren's Oscar Piastri finished 2nd, while Leclerc's Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz finished 3rd. Lando Norris had a good outing again, finishing 4th, just missing the podium, while Max Verstappen finishing all the way down in 6th. Massive crash on the opening lap between Red Bull's Sergio Perez and Haas drivers Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. It looked bad. You're just glad everyone's healthy after that. It was a mess, and it was said there was extensive damage done to the Red Bull car, damage that will cost between $2 and $3 million. And it was a very unique finish to this race, something you've never seen in Formula One. The drivers finished 1 to 10 in the exact order of qualifying. It had never been done before. The closest it had been done was 1 to 6, finishing in the exact order. So the fact qualifying 1 to 10 is how the race finished, it's just crazy. You would never have bet at that. So we got a little bit of break in between the next race, the Canadian Grand Prix, which goes down Sunday, June 9th in Montreal. We may see a driver change in Montreal as well. There's talks Alpine may remove Esteban Ocon from his seat after his clash with teammate Pierre Gasly in Monaco. We'll have to see where this story unfolds, but Ocon may be out of Alpine. Yikes. We'll go to the Indy 500, one of the most famous races in the world, and the famous race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway went down. It was rain delayed a bit, but once the rain cleared, it was an exciting one. A bold last lap pass for Joseph Newgarden led to him winning his 2nd straight Indy 500. A great result for Newgarden. A bad day for NASCAR driver Kyle Larson, who was hoping to race in the Indy 500 as well as the Coca-Cola 600 later in the day. The rain delay cost him the chance to race them both, and he didn't even do well in the Indy 500. 500. So not an ideal day for him. On social media, Larson said, what I thought could be one of the best days of my life quickly turned into one of the most disappointing ones I've ever experienced. So that's a buzzkill. Some other pretty wild video in NASCAR was from the race a week prior when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. approached Kyle Busch after some rubbing racing and threw a punch at him. You got to check out that video if you haven't. Stenhouse Jr. was fined for the incident. PGA, the golf world has brought us lots of news since last episode. Some positive news, shocking news, and some really sad news, actually. We'll start with the happy news. Xander Schauffele picked up his first major, holding on in the final round at Valhalla to win the PGA Championship. It was looking like we may have a playoff with Schauffele and Bryson DeChambeau, but Xander held it together to secure the win. And his win was kind of overshadowed by number one golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler, not so much for his play on the course, but for what was happening outside. There was a fatal accident on the roadway leading up to the golf course, and police were at the scene, redirecting traffic. Scheffler went to go around the crew to head toward the golf course where he had to play, and he was removed from his car, arrested. A wild scene where Scheffler was able to post bail, get a later tee time, just a surreal moment. You did not expect to see the number one golfer of the world's mugshot. I know maybe he's trying to be like Tiger a little too much there, but I was shocked by it. It was just crazy. Like, what the hell? But the next story I'm going to is not funny at all. This is a terrible story. The golfing world was left in shock after hearing the news of professional golfer Grayson Murray. The two-time winner on tour withdrew from the second round of the Charles Schwab Challenge in Texas. It was then announced that the 30-year-old took his own life. It was announced by his parents online, and you could feel the emotion in their words. Murray had spoken openly about his battles with depression, anxiety, and alcoholism, and such a sad story. You don't know what everyone's going through, what anyone's going through, and he just withdrew from the tournament, and just to go, like, still hard to fathom what really happened there. Hope his family's doing okay, and oh, like I said, reading that social media post, you could feel it. You feel the emotion. We did have the big boxing match go down between the Gypsy King Tyson Fury and Ukrainian Alexander Usyk. A lot of this fight looked like Fury would maybe win it on points, but as it got later in the match, Usyk got stronger. And he was putting Fury retreating on his feet, getting barraged with punches. It would go to judges, and Usyk would win the bout, unifying the titles along the way. A massive win for him. Fury handled it as poor as you could, saying the judges awarded it to a person whose country is under invasion, referring to Ukraine being under attack. That's probably not the highest road to take, but Fury has already triggered the rematch, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Like I said, this is like 2 weeks of sports wrapped up into one episode. And that brings us to our short. Like I said, lots of sports here. While we were on vacation, I watched a few sports, but come on. It's vacation mode. We were on vacation. One part of the trip I want to highlight, I figured I'd split this trip into two shorts. The first pair of shorts here is highlighting the Blue Jays game. Man, I mentioned it in the MLB segment. The Jays crushed the White Sox in that series opener. That was the game we were at. Me and my wife got to witness that. Some damn good hitting. Some good pitching by Jose Barrios. Got to watch Danny Jansen become a beast, bring in 5 home runs, a nice dinger. What a cool experience. We sat up in the 500 section, which is a little high, but what a view of the field you get. A view of the whole park, to be honest. We got some cool shots up there. Plus, we had some old dude in front of us dancing. He has the stamina of a long-distance runner. He was grooving in that outrageous heat. I can't believe him. He had a number 1 jersey, and it said Wild on the back. He was a real wild one. But anyway, Rogers Center is just as dope a place to walk around. Lots of shit going on, lots of different foods. We each had a hot dog. Wife had some beers with a cool keepsake cup to keep home. Grabbed some popcorn. I ate way too much popcorn. Just because you can fill it for free does not mean you need to, but it's a cool keepsake. The big saver for us was those water filling stations. Damn, I was chugging water like it was going out of style. Being a ginger in that Toronto heat, it was tough. The humidity, it was a nightmare. Me and my wife were struggling there. We were getting our sweat on. We fought the sun, and the sun won. The next day, we were both feeling effects. I was throwing up, and I haven't drank in years. And like, the sun whooped my ass. You gotta stay hydrated. Just a reminder that you can't beat the sun. And there was some craziness before we even got into the stadium. A free jersey giveaway of the first 15,000 fans in the stadium. I won't mention who yet, but you may see me wearing an episode 68. If that's a giveaway on who it is, then you might know. But yeah, the wife and I went early to the line, tried to get these jerseys. We were there a few hours early, got to witness the craziness going on outside, including some boys drinking some liquor in the bushes, pouring it to the lid and chugging it back, which must have been so warm, by the way. But yeah, as we're lining up here, we're waiting. The doors are getting closer to open. A Karen comes slithering in with her Karen kids, and we all saw it. We're like, hey, what are you doing? We've all been waiting here for hours. The line's in the back. And she's trying to ignore us. Then she's like saying she's in a different line. Then she's telling us all to fuck off. Like, shit was getting real. I pulled the camera out to just, have shit in case shit went down. And then some ass clown like trying to sneak in, and my wife told him, hey, back of the line that way. And he says, yeah, I know, Cupcake, and flips her off. Like, who are these people? And as security showed up, he bounced faster than a rubber ball. And our boy Glenn, he was a security guard. He came in. He was super chill. We told him what was going on. He seemed to handle it. The Karen's husband was probably the funniest thing. He was blowing up. He's like, I'm not fucking doing this over free jerseys. Bullshit. So he stormed off, prompted my wife to come in and say, someone's sleeping on the couch tonight. Nailed it. Laughter from the line. Karen left in shame. I felt bad for her two kids who didn't really know what to do. It's like, Mom, you're making a scene, but man, it was awkward. But we got into the game. It was great. Racked up the steps. It was awesome. And after the game, if you go to a game in Toronto, go down to the Haba. Check it out. It's really cool. The whole experience was awesome. I loved it. And if you're like, Rencity, what's going on? Where's the WNBA in the show? Well, you know what? I got the WNBA talk. But I'm going to put it into my NBA talk too. This episode's gone long. We filling it in. We catching up on everything. So my next NBA recap, expect some WNBA recap. And I'm pumped about that recap coming up because I picked the Celtics and the Mavericks in the finals. And Celtics are there. Mavericks, I mean, they're up 3-0. Maybe I gave them the jinx of Ren, but I hope I didn't. I'd like to see them in the finals. And yeah, shit's wild, son. Thanks for coming out again. Episode 63. We're just trucking along. Nice vacation. It's good to be back. Sports are rocking. I mean, I'm due for another vacation already, but anywho, we'll keep watching sports. Like I said, footy's wrapped up. We got Euros coming up in a month. We got NHL playoffs, baseball. Things are getting real, son. So thanks for tuning in. Rencity out.